So let's talk about 3 insane ideas to make driving rideshare really worth it. Hey everyone, my name is Chris and welcome to the Rideshare Guy. For the last several months, we've been talking about a driver shortage. Now, most markets are experiencing some sort of driver shortage in the overall scheme of things, while other markets are actually back to pre-pandemic levels. But overall, yes, there is a driver shortage, and drivers are taking much longer to come back to the platforms than ever before. So Uber and Lyft have had to try to entice drivers to come back to the platform and continue driving with them. But there are some things that they haven't done. Let's start thinking outside the box. Let's talk about 3 different ways that they could bring drivers back and make it much more appealing. And no, more pay, even though I know that's the #1 thing that could happen to bring drivers back. More pay, if it wasn't on the table, what else could they actually do to entice drivers to come back and make it worth it for them? The first thing that they could do is guaranteed earnings, so drivers are always paid what they're worth. Now, guaranteed earnings have been around for a while, but it's usually only for brand new drivers or drivers coming back to the platform. What about drivers who've been sticking around or have been driving through the entire pandemic or continue to drive? Not a one-off beginning thing or coming back, but something that could be week in and week out. Now, if you don't know what earnings guarantees are, it's really simple. It's essentially if you give X amount of rides or deliveries within a given time frame, you are going to earn X amount of dollars. So for a hypothetical example, let's say if you give 65 rides in 1 week, you'll earn $600. That's the earnings guarantee. So if you fall short of that $600 for giving those 65 rides in 1 week, well, the company will give you the amount of money that's the difference to give you that earning guarantee floor. But if you make more money than that $600 for those 65 rides, well, the company will say, hey, you made that, you got the earnings guarantee, and they're not going to give you anything extra. But at least you know what you're going to make if you give that amount of rides per week. Now, downside to this system is that if you're doing longer trips, that's going to take more time. So it's going to be harder for you to reach that trip goal to qualify for earning the bonus in the first place. So this is something that you got to take account for, and hopefully that these companies will take account for, especially if you're in a market where longer rides are kind of the norm. So something that they could do for current drivers is that they could offer more guaranteed pay incentives for existing and returning drivers. So they could say something like, if you work 20 hours during the week and accept 85% of passenger requests, we're going to guarantee you at least $600. Now that wording would be really good because then it would take into account all trips, long, short, and everything in between. Now there is another thing that they could do in terms of wording when it comes to earnings guarantee that could be pretty good for drivers as well. And that would be something like if you work 15 hours after dark, and guarantee you're going to make at least $35 an hour if you accept 90% of passenger requests. That would be really good because this way the guarantee is based on how many hours you spend online as well as the percentage of trips that you request. So the type of offer is going to sound better to drivers, and it's also more flexible. Now that would be good for these rideshare companies as well because it's going to incentivize drivers to get online and accept more trips. All right, now that we covered a first crazy, insane idea that they could try to entice drivers to come back and make it more worth it, let's go to #2. And this is a big thing that they could do, and that would be fuel reimbursement. Now, gas is a major expense when it comes to driving, and it's always going to be fluctuating. So it could change from day to day, it could change from station to station, and it's been nice and low for a little while, but it is rising over the last couple of months. So fuel reimbursement would be a really good idea, especially if they don't raise rates in order to reflect the rising gas prices. Now, these companies could actually get pretty accurate in fuel reimbursement by taking into account the vehicle that you're driving and the expected miles per gallon that you're going to get. Also, the average price of gas that's in your area, as well as how many miles you were online, and they could calculate a formula and then give you a fuel reimbursement based on those factors. Now, doing something like a fuel reimbursement could be a really good step for these companies to offer to their drivers because it's such a big expense and it's always fluctuating. So at least then at that time, you would know that you would have a certain amount of take-home pay and you would be reimbursed for the fuel that you use when on platform. But unfortunately, they aren't really doing that. But make sure when it comes to tax time that you are calculating your miles, that you are keeping track of your miles, and that you are claiming the amount of miles and all the other deductions that you're able to on your taxes. Highly suggest talking to a tax expert in your area, and they will be able to help you claim as many deductions as possible when it comes to doing rideshare. Now, a third thing that could make rideshare driving much more worth it, not necessarily coming from the companies, but they could do some things to help incentivize even more so, is electric vehicles. Now, this would take out the fuel reimbursement or the gas price altogether because, well, you're not paying gas. And electricity is a lot more stable when it comes to when and how much it's going to be. If you're charging at home, if you're going to a fast charge station, anything like that. Now, Uber is already doing quite a bit when it comes to trying to entice drivers to go an EV versus internal combustion engine. And they're doing something where drivers with EVs can earn an extra $1 on every Uber trip. This is up to $4,000 annually, and it's through their zero emissions incentive. The second thing that they're doing is they're doing an extra 50 cents for each Uber Green trip, which is paid by riders when they select Uber Green as their ride option. And they've partnered with certain car manufacturers to offer even more discounts when purchasing a new EV. Now, those are some good incentives for drivers to switch to EV, but there are some things that they could go even further on and actually implement to make sure that drivers go EV, and it would be worth it for drivers to do, as well as earn more money. Now, EVs have a much larger upfront cost, but when you average it out over the lifespan of the car versus its counterpart of a gas-powered car, the EV will be most likely cheaper in the long run and overall versus its counterpart. Now, there's a lot of resources out there that you can find that can actually give you the breakdown cost of what it's going to be for an electric vehicle versus a gas-powered vehicle over its lifespan. So you can actually see if you're going to spend money or if you're going to save money. Not only that, then again, take into account some of the things that Uber is already offering when it comes to the EVs. Now, those are a few different ideas that Uber and Lyft and yourself could actually do in order to help rideshare make it even more profitable for you and more take-home pay in your pockets. But I want to hear from you. Are any of these ideas appealing? And what would you say to Uber and Lyft to try to get drivers back on the road or keep drivers on the road and have less of a turnover? Comment below, let us know. And if you like saving money and keeping money in your pocket, make sure you smash that like button. It's free. Why not? Also, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every time new videos do come out, which can help you make more money, earn more money, and also see what new things are coming in the pipeline when it comes to many different things that Uber and Lyft are doing, implementing, and even testing out. All right, everyone, drive safe.